Greetings, friends. Thank you for joining me as we go over the top with my dear friend, Bulgarian violin phenom, Bella Hristova. Bella and I last saw each other in 2017. We recorded a piece that I wrote in response to the xenophobic sitting president's Muslim ban. It seemed like this flew in the face of the American idea of the melting pot, of the Statue of Liberty's embrace of all you're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. You can hear the churning Hudson River under the Ellis Island ferry where we filmed this melding of all the national anthems of our young collaborators, Bella from Bulgaria, Masha from Ukraine, Amir from Iran, Javier from Mexico, Gigi from Korea, Oscar from Guatemala and Bolivia, leading up to a joyous invocation of Woody Guthrie's "This Land Is Your Land." Let's listen to a bit of that tribute now. You can watch the full video of This Land/Our Land on YouTube. Now, it is my giddy pleasure to welcome to Over the Top my dear and admired friend, violinist Bella Hristova. Welcome, Bella.
Thank you, Christopher. So happy to be here and to see you again. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful to see you. Where are we catching you today? Are you at home?
I am at home in New York City. I'm home alone, but I'm joined by 4 felines, which may make an appearance. I don't know.
I was going to ask, are any of your ill-behaved cats, as you would describe it? They'll be joining us probably at some point.
Well, they might, but they're very lazy, so they sleep all day. But
And how about you? Have you done your run for the day? I understand running is a new thing for you.
Yes, I have not. I'm going on a 5-mile run as soon as we're finished speaking.
And so where do you run in New York?
I run in the park. I've never been much of a runner, or I didn't think I was, because when I had tried on a treadmill, I get bored very easily, and it's so easy to turn it off.
Yeah.
And just say, I'll watch TV instead. So in December, my sister-in-law, Sarah, David's sister, she's a runner, and she's run the marathon here, and she said, let's go running. I thought, okay, but I need shoes. So I bought a pair of Brooks, I did a little research, and I said, okay, well, I can go running now. And so we went in the park, we did a 5K, and I loved it. I was very tired. I hadn't run before, not really, but I loved it. And I started going on my own, and it's something I look forward to every time I go. And I'm training for a 10K right now, which is in June 8th. And the last few weeks or a month or so, it's been so beautiful to see the changing park, to see the cherry blossoms bloom and the magnolias, and just to see the different scenery every day. So I go to the park. We're very near the park, and there's a loop of various lengths. So today is 5 miles.
Excellent. Now, have you found that running has had a good effect on your playing? I mean, that endorphin buzz I know is very, very important.
Yeah, well, just finding an exercise that's good for you, obviously, physically, but that doesn't involve the upper body. That's always been my dilemma with strength training, because I've gone through bouts of following programs with that too, but as soon as I do too much with my arms, my forearms get tight, and so you have to be careful. So I do love running for that too, but also it's a mental game, running long distances. You have to be tough and sort of keep going, but also learn how to be smart about it. You can't injure yourself. So there are definitely parallels.
I've always found it aerobic exercise to be really great for our mood. When I lived in New York, decades, centuries ago, I would start my Central Park run in the morning with all the weight of the world on me. And at the end of the run, with the endorphins pumping through my system, I would have solved the world's problems and world peace would be on the horizon. You know what I mean? Hey,
Absolutely, yeah.
I know you're a big reader. What are you loving especially these days in your reading?
I've been on a Jules Verne kick. So right now I'm reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I just read Mysterious Island. When I was a child in Bulgaria, I remember reading a book in Bulgarian that I was so taken by. It made a huge impression on me at the time, but of course now trying to recall it, I couldn't remember much about it, except that it was about a shipwrecked group of children. I didn't have much to go on. And over the last 10 years or so, maybe every now and then I think about it, I put it into Google, shipwreck book about castaways, island, and you get a million things. And I never got close to what I thought I read. So I heard about Mysterious Island, and I thought, well, this sounds promising, except I don't think they were adults. I think they were children. So it's not Mysterious Island, but through researching Jules Verne, I think I found the book, and I have it. I haven't started it yet. It's called, actually it has two names. One is Adrift in the Pacific. The other one is 2 Years Holiday. But it is about this group of boys from a school in Auckland, New Zealand, out of all places. Now, this was me as a child in Bulgaria. I have a connection to New Zealand. I've been there a lot, so that's a weird connection. And they end up on this island, and they live there for 2 years. So.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful! And
Yeah.
so would you put Jules Verne or any of the Jules Verne that you've read thus far? Would they be in your top 5 all-time favorite books? Do you think, or?
Oh man, this is hard. I loved Mysterious Island. That really grabbed me. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I'm enjoying. It's fascinating, but I guess I like Mysterious Island more. Mm-hmm. I don't know. He's the father of sci-fi, and I love sci-fi.
Who are some of your other?
I can't choose just 5.
That's fine. Well, just tell me who are some of your favorite sci-fi writers?
Well, The Expanse series. It's James S.A. Corey, which is a pen name for 2 authors. That's a 9-book series, and it's been made into a TV show as well.
Wow.
Let's see, what else? I also read some nonfiction. Haruki Murakami is a beautiful fiction, magical realism writing, so a little sci-fi. But he also wrote a nonfiction book called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. He's a marathon runner, so that was the last book of his that I read. I just got a book from the library called The Underworld. It's about the depths of the ocean. It's nonfiction. I'm looking forward to digging into that.
I'm so happy to hear that you got into Murakami. I read a lot myself, and I know Murakami was somebody who had been recommended to me in talking about other authors like David Foster Wallace, who's a big favorite of mine, and William T. Vollmann, another favorite. And so when I started the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, I couldn't get more than 30 pages into it. And I think what the problem was that I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to take on a new writer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was only many years later, and after I've been always putting up little capsule reviews on Facebook and things, and everybody's been saying, well, why aren't you reading Murakami? You would love him. And so I said, well, I explained, that I just couldn't get into it. And so they recommended Norwegian Wood. I don't know if you've read. And
that one I haven't.
It's great. And as a result, I ended up reading absolutely everything by Murakami. So I'm so glad we have that in common.
Yes.
He's fantastic
Kafka on the
writer.
Shore is probably my favorite.
Is that your favorite?
I think so, but likewise, I read the Wind Up Bird Chronicle first, and I did read all the way through it, but Kafka on the Shore somehow really resonated with me.
That seems to be a favorite of a lot of people, and actually, that's one of the ones that I recommend for first-time Murakami readers. The one that I think is probably the most fun is Dance, Dance, Dance. Have you read that?
See, that one I haven't read either.
You deserve it.
So that one, is that one a sequel or a prequel to A Wild Sheep Chase? I know there are 2 of them in a row.
I think so, yes.
So I have A Wild Sheep Chase. I can get very OCD about things, like doing things in order, or even though Jules Verne I'm reading out of order, I'm reading in backwards order.
Right.
Can't think about it too much.
Yeah. Bella, I want to share your wonderful playing with our audience. You've recorded so much, and I want to heartily recommend your new fans check out the incredible collection of recordings on your YouTube channel, Bella Hristova. We spell the last name Hristova. We're going to hear you playing now a traditional Bulgarian dance. Tell us the title of what we're hearing, about the tradition behind it, and also who the brilliant composer is who made this wonderful solo violin arrangement.
This is a dance called Rachenica. It's just the name of a dance. It's a traditional dance in 7/8, so it's a little off kilter. And the composer is Petar Hristoskov. Now he has a book of 24 Bulgarian caprices, essentially, based on different dances. A few of them are really effective, but the Rachenica is really one that grabs me. Now, this is all written down for violin. I'm not doing any improvising. He wrote it, basing it off of this dance. But I remember as a little girl in Bulgaria, we would go to the town square on public holidays and see these intricate dances danced by groups of traditional dancers all dressed up. They all knew how to move together as one. I don't think anybody counts. I think it's like, you feel it. It's a long, short thing rather than counting to 13. There are also these bands on YouTube that you see, the Bulgarian folk bands. Really, it's like a school of fish. They just move seamlessly, and I'm in awe.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think I remember you telling me the dancers are in these huge, heavy gowns, and that it's kind of amazing with this very quick dance that they're able to get around at all.
Yes. It's a skill. I can't dance the dance, but I can play it.
Well, we're going to share your illustrious history, or should I say history, with our audience after we listen to this. Petar Hristoskov, this is Rachenica. Our violinist friend Bella Hristova plays. That was Petar Hristoskov's arrangement of a traditional Bulgarian dance in 7/8 called Rachanitsa with our guest violinist Bella Hristova. It sounds so spontaneous the way you play it, Bella. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fun. I played this one a lot as an encore. And
You've accomplished such an incredible amount in such a short time, Bella. Graduating from Curtis, where you studied with Ida Kavafian, going on to study with Jamie Laredo at Indiana University, where you received your artist diploma. Lots of competition prizes, including Indianapolis, Young Concert Artists, which we've both participated in,
Yes.
the Avery Fisher Career Grant, and others. And speaking of Jamie, I know you appeared with him at Carnegie Hall with his New York String Orchestra no less than 6 times.
Wow.
Tell us about working with Jamie and your storied history at Carnegie Hall with the orchestra.
Jamie is one of my musical heroes and personal heroes, and he is such an inspiration to me in how to be as a musician and violinist and as a person. He's a dear, dear friend. I first got to know him at the New York String Seminar as a student. This is before I studied with him. I was a participant, and then 2006 I was concertmaster of New York String Orchestra.
Wow.
And on my 21st birthday, which happens during the seminar, I was concertmaster with Jamie conducting and Leon Fleischer playing the Brahms first piano concerto. So that was a real inspirational moment in my young life then. But since then I have performed with them, I guess 6 times as soloist. Most recently, just now at Christmas Eve, we played the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante with fabulous violist Milena Pachara-Bandestadt.
Oh, I remember her, yes. Wonderful.
Yeah, and with Jamie conducting. And I have played with him a lot, with him conducting other places too. And I feel so supported and encouraged on stage and off stage. It's really one of the most meaningful musical experiences that I've had working with him. I mean, it is a cliche, but playing at Carnegie Hall on Christmas Eve to a sold-out house is really quite magical. There's nothing like it.
No, can't imagine. I played with Jamie only once, a Mozart concerto with Vermont Symphony, and he is, as you say, a deeply serious musician, but such a generous and joyous soul. Just wonderful working with him.
Absolutely. I was going to say, one of the times that we played at Carnegie Hall, maybe it was the Mendelssohn Concerto, we were backstage about to walk on, and I said to him, Jamie, I'm kind of nervous. And he said, if you weren't nervous, there'd be something wrong with you. So that, again, immediately put me more at ease and just went out and enjoyed it.
Of course. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And now, of course, studying with Ida, I know you gained a great deal from her, especially Ida Kavafian's devotion to chamber music. I understand you became part of the Bauer program, formerly known as CMS2, sort of a AAA league of the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, with whom you've performed now several times a season since 2009. Of course, we both know the irreplaceable energy and passion in abundance with young artists. What have been some of your favorite experiences with the Chamber Music Society?
Oh, man, there's so many. I just finished a tour with them. It was called String Magic. So on the program, the pieces that I played were the Beethoven Opus 3 String Trio, which is a massive work, early but massive, 6 movements.
Yes.
Then there was a Francais String Trio, which I didn't play, Bridge Lament for 2 violas, and we finished off with the Mendelssohn B-flat quintet.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was a great colleague. It was a really fun group. The Brandenburg Concerti around Christmas time, because they always put them on, and I've participated several times. That's another very, very happy experience. And in the middle of this tour, the last 2.5 weeks has been quite crazy. In the middle of the tour, I was also part of a new music program at CMS where, among other things, we did the New York premiere of my husband, David Ludwig's 4th piano trio.
Wow.
So that was also a highlight.
Wonderful. I know 2013 saw the release of Bella Unaccompanied, a solo album with works by John Corigliano, Kevin Putz, Astor Piazzolla, Nathan Milstein, and J.S. Bach. So much of your brilliant solo work on that album is also available in live performance on your YouTube channel. But I know you have now a new commissioning project, which is quite dear to your heart, inspired by the solo violin music of J.S. Bach and Eugene Izai. Tell us.
Lineage is this commissioning project of getting new works written for me, inspired or loosely inspired by the solo writings of Bach and Isai. Whenever I get asked who my favorite composer is, I feel like the question should be besides Bach, right? Who's your favorite composer besides Bach? You can't even explain it. When I was studying with Jamie at Indiana University, I learned and performed all the Isai sonatas. Jamie studied with Joseph Gingold, who studied with Isai. So I felt like there was a direct link, lineage to the composer, and in this case, Isai. And Jamie said that Isai was greatly inspired by the Bach solo works. His pieces are very demanding, and they could easily be written off as showpieces, but he didn't want that label attached to them. So I thought, well, if I commission 6 new works, you see 3 centuries of innovation and writing for the violin as a solo instrument, as its own instrument. Solo violin playing is something I really enjoy doing, and I think partially or fully because my favorite instrument is the piano. I have piano envy. So by playing solo repertoire, I feel like it's the closest that I can come to being my own complete instrument.
Yes.
So a number of years ago, Joan Tower was the first composer that I commissioned. She wrote a fabulous piece for me called Second String Force, and I paired that with a Bach partita and an Isai sonata. And more recently, Nokotula Ngunyama, Tula, she wrote a piece for me during the pandemic, and she called it Miasma. And because of the time it was written, this was 2020, it was premiered in early 21, so we were all home and really not knowing what was going to happen. Yeah. She read a New York Times article about the COVID genome, and, it had letters, and apparently it was unfinished. It ended with the same repeating letter. So she speaks about this much better than I do.
She's quite brilliant on this subject. We're next going to hear one of your commissioned works written by another of our fellow young concert artists alums, Nokotula Ngunyama.
Yes.
It's called Miasma, and as much as we can sometimes hear the letters of Bach's name in his music, Thule uses the letters of the COVID genome as the germ, or rather virus, that gives rise to this extended and wonderful work for solo violin. Some brilliant words of introduction from the composer. Miasma, an obsolete term for night air that people from China, Europe, and India have scapegoated as disease for millennia. Before the widespread acceptance of germ theory, healers from Florence Nightingale, 1820 to 1910, to Hippocrates, 460 to 377 BCE, and Cao Yuanfeng from the Sui dynasty, 1518 to 1618, they all believed that bad air led to the spread of a disease. Pollution in Greek, mythic miasma, appears as a contagious power that has an independent life of its own. Until purged by the sacrificial death of the wrongdoer, society could be infected by the catastrophe. Although more than a century has passed since widespread acceptance of miasmatic theory, our reaction to pandemic remains similar. Viruses continue to find their way into the lived experience, creating global loss and spurring evolution not to be felt for generations. Genomic letters ACGU, standing for adenine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil, appear as their corresponding notes, with U for uracil being treated as wild, allowing for greater range and harmonic movement. Shostakovich's flexible use of dodecahonic techniques also served as a guide, giving her freedom to come in and out of the patterns as desired. Miasma starts in a lamenting adagio, gradually sinking to the first of several low distortions, symbolizing pandemic realization around the world. Genomic patterns and variants B1 and B1351 interrupt and gradually make themselves more prominent through the piece, finally trailing off with 33 A's at the end, as the genome has. So let's hear this fantastic performance now of Nokotula Ngunyama's Miasma with our guest, violinist Bela Hristova. So Bella, it's such an astonishing piece, and I know some of Thula's music. I've actually played with her viola concerto. How did the influence of Bach and Isai make itself felt to you in her piece?
To me, it's felt in the middle section where so you have these wild jumps and patterns that she writes based on the COVID genome. And one of the things I love about this piece is that you don't need any of this information to appreciate it and love it as a great piece, but it's an extra layer of depth and sort of shows the creative process of a composer. And I said this to her, I said, to me, the beginning is the dirge and sort of descends into these distorted low tones. And then we have the kind of jumpy and crazy and very difficult first part. And then in the middle, do you remember, I think it was the very first summer, it looked like we might be on our way out.
Right.
Of the pandemic,
right.
But we weren't.
No, no way.
And to me, the middle section, which is more melodic and more linear, sort of like Bach's writing, to me that signifies that summer period. And then it descends back into the second wave. And as we now know, it wasn't the second wave. So because this was premiered in 2021 in March, this was before Omicron, before any of those later variants. Tula is writing a second movement to this piece called Variant because the story continues. So this will be premiered next year.
Oh, wonderful.
And,
That's great news.
And it'll be possible to play it as a standalone piece as well as a it's a separate movement.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have the other composers in mind for the rest of the Lineage project?
I have more than the composers in mind. So yes, I do. And I sort of do it one at a time because presenting these programs, you have to find the right presenter and the right space for a program of unaccompanied violin music. Yeah. And it's nice when the composer can be there for a premiere. So it's a slow project, but my goal at the end is to record all 6 and put out an album, and at the same time to make produced video recordings of them.
So exciting. Such a laudable enterprise. Yeah. Beautiful. I know you've championed new repertoire in the concerto vein as well, including the 2014 world premiere of a violin concerto written for you by New Zealand composer Anthony Ritchie. I've never been to New Zealand. You were telling me you've been there a lot. What's it like playing there or just living there?
I have. I love New Zealand. The reason I have a connection to there is because in 2007, I won first prize in the Michael Hill International Violin Competition. The best part of the prize is that the next year you go back for a huge winner's tour. This was a recital tour and concerto dates. And for me, that I see that as the beginning of my performance career because it was a very intense month. It was just before I started grad school. And I was tired at the end, but I knew that I wanted to do it all over again. And that was a very sort of reaffirming experience. Now, fast forward a few more trips, and the composer Anthony Ritchie approached me, and he said, I would love to write a concerto for you. And I said, that's amazing. I would love to play your concerto. So that happened, and we corresponded a little bit with the part, and I went over there and played the premiere in Dunedin with the Southern Sinfonia, and I've been back multiple times since then too.
Wonderful.
So yeah, New Zealand's one of my favorite places.
Oh, how great. I know you've recently been touring another concerto written by Wynton Marsalis. Tell us how you came to that work and what's it like working with Wynton?
Yeah, Wynton is incredible and so inspiring. That concerto was not written for me. It was written for Nicola Benedetti in 2015 or 16, I think it was, when it was premiered. A couple of years ago, or maybe 3 or 4 now, the conductor Francesco Lecce-Chong, who was a classmate of mine at Curtis, said to me, hey, I'd really like to program the Marsalis concerto. Would you play it? Huh. And I said, yeah, I'd love to, but I need to see the music first. Because you can listen to something, but I just really needed to see the music to see that it would work for my head. It's a massive piece. It's 40 minutes, 4 big movements. I knew that, in my mind, I knew that I was going to do it even before I had seen the music because I heard the piece and I loved it so much. When I was learning it, I was able to play for Wynton, and he was incredibly generous with his time and energy. I spent, I think, 5 hours with him that day playing, and we went through the whole piece. You know, he was kind of clapping along the percussion section. He explained to me a lot of the different influences that he had while writing it, whether it from American jazz or fiddle or blues. He showed different clips to me on YouTube of performers that I really hadn't known before, and that helped in the overall interpretation. The thing I took away the most was I asked about some note. I said, "Oh, well, can I change this note?" Or he said, "I don't care what note you play." And the audience doesn't care what note you play, but they want to feel something, make them feel something. And that really stuck with me because,
Amazing.
Of course, the audience is not following with the score. They go there for a shared experience. And that piece especially, I feel, is written to bring in such a wide variety of audience members. And it's always been well received. I've done it with 4 different orchestras now and playing it next season.
Great.
And it's a lot of fun to play.
Most recently, you've recorded and performed a concerto written for you by none other than David Ludwig, who happens to be your husband. What's it like, Bella, from the inception of this project as a brainchild through the concept of the work, what it'll include, how long did it take from idea to fruition, and when was the first performance?
So he didn't want it to be that self-centered, so he made it about the broader idea of marriage and communion and a whole community coming together, 2 people's commitment, celebrating their commitment to each other. But he couldn't help himself to make it a little autobiographical and put Easter eggs in there. The end of the second movement ends with our initials. Our initials are in there somehow with the violin and the horn. So the horn, because it has this big bell, he thinks of Bella. The rings, there are rings that the solo violin plays, musical rings with different members of the orchestra. So we sort of interweave like that.
Beautiful.
But perhaps the most meaningful bit that he put in there is in the second movement. Movements follow loosely a traditional wedding day. The first movement is called Dances, which shows different scenes preparing for the ceremony. So it's sort of different glimpses into the day. The second movement is called Ceremony, which is the processional and the celebration, the commitment. And the third movement is called Festival, and it borrows from another Bulgarian folk dance called Krivuhuro, which David says it means crooked dance because that's how you go home from a good party. But the ceremony movement, he inserted about 13 measures, note for note, from my father's violin concerto. Now, my father was a composer from the Soviet era. He was somebody that I never knew because he passed away when I was 4 and my parents were not together. So I wish I could have met him, but that's not here nor there. But I knew him through his music. I grew up listening to his music and I knew that he had a violin concerto. So when David was writing the piece, he found it. It was at the Northwestern School library. He did an interlibrary loan and got the concerto, scanned it, returned it, and chose these 13 measures sort of as having a parental presence in the ceremony movement.
Wonderful.
And he didn't tell me about it. It was a surprise. He surprised me with it on Valentine's Day, right? How's he going to top that?
That's incredible. What an incredible story.
The premiere was conducted in 2016, and Jamie conducted the premiere. This was with Vermont Symphony, and we've since then performed it with the consortium orchestras and with many others. And the recording, yes, just came out with Buffalo Philharmonic and Joanne Falletta, who we adore, and we're so delighted for this to be out in the world now.
Yes. We're going to hear now the David Ludwig Violin Concerto, the first movement, Dances. This is the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra conducted by Joanne Falletta. Violin soloist is our guest, Bella Hristova. That was the first movement, Dances, from David Ludwig's concerto that he wrote for his wife, Bella Hristova, our guest violinist. You know, Bella, it's just such a magnificent and massive work, and it's so nice that you described the early part, the first movement, as dances. In other words, prefatory to the ceremony, and it reminds me somewhat in this sort of the darker, more folk-like openings of dances. It reminds me of, the feeling of excitement but trepidation that we hear in Stravinsky's piece about wedding, Les Noces.
Yes. Well, actually, he quotes that in the cadenza. He quotes Les Noces in his own way, but the very opening, because it begins with this big clash and boom, he sees that as two souls that have been apart their whole life, sort of. It's like the Big Bang, like coming together, and there's a certain dissonance there, and then they meld together. Now, when my mother heard this piece, she thought, oh my God, this is about you? Is this what your relationship is like? She was a little terrified, but since I said, no, Mother, it's called artistic expression.
Just great, a great, wonderful piece. So quite a ways from the relatively light-hearted Rechinitsa, which we began our program today. We're going to wrap up our deep dive into the wonderful sound world of Bella Hristova with her latest release, a beautifully recorded disc of the Brahms violin sonatas with pianist Michael Houston. This is a rattle release. You've recorded for them before, right, Bella?
Yes, we recorded the complete Beethoven sonatas in 2017, and there's also a French album coming out later this year.
Tell us how you and Michael came to work together.
It was on my winter's tour in New Zealand in 2008, and I played that with two pianists, and Michael was one of them. And we hit it off musically right away and kept in touch. And I hoped then that one day I would be able to play the Beethoven sonatas with him. And so, and Beethoven's my favorite composer, and Michael has recorded the complete piano sonatas.
Wow.
And we sort of found connection over that. So in 2017, the Beethoven tour happened. It was another tour of New Zealand, and we recorded them. And then Brahms seemed like a logical next step. It was delayed by the pandemic, but it did happen. When did we record it? 22, right? And then it came out in 23. So that was a wonderful project. And there's such great works. When I listen to Brahms and then I say, well, Beethoven's my favorite, but Brahms is also my favorite. And of course, Bach, we can't forget about Bach. And there's so many contemporary composers that you can't pick favorites. Right.
Exactly. Now, as I mentioned, the thing that strikes me immediately is how beautifully the recorded sound is rendered. Where did you record this set? The engineer is wonderful, and we recorded it in New Zealand in Hamilton at Waikato University. They have a beautiful performing arts center, and that's where, it's a really nice place to play. Fantastic, really wonderful. And Steve surrounds us with microphones. Yes. So catching everything. Thank you. A very vibrant sound. We're going to hear now the finale, Presto Agitato, of the Sonata No. 3 in D minor by Johannes Brahms, performed by our guest violinist Bella Hristova and pianist Michael Houston. The last movement of Brahms's D minor violin sonata with our guest Bela Hristova and pianist Michael Houston. This is from their newly released recording on Rattle Records, and it's available on all platforms, of course, of the complete Brahms sonatas, of just an essential set, absolutely. Bella, I can never get enough of your playing, and the irrepressible joy of your nature is so addicting. I wish we didn't need to say goodbye. How about we just say till next time? Can we say that?
Till next time. I like that very much.
Okay.
It's such a pleasure to talk with you. You make it so easy to just share.
Well, it's just been great having you on the program, Bella. Thank you for joining us, okay?
Thank you, Christopher. A real pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for going with me over the top with my musical friends, old and new. Thanks again to our friend over at the Cello Sherpa podcast, Joel Dallow, for giving me the idea, the courage, and expertise to take my hosting persona into the podcast realm. Join us again next time as we go over the top.